Dear Lord, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for the cooler weather, and we thank you for this club, the opportunity to serve our community. We thank you for the success of our event last week, which enables us to help those in our community and to fund scholarships. We pray that you be with our leaders, both local, state, and national, that you watch over our first responders as they keep us safe, and that you just continue to grant us the opportunity to serve those around us. It's in your name that we pray.
Amen.
Come in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome. Any guests this morning? Yes, sir, Mr. Terry.
Yes, sir. I got a guest here, John Moore. Go ahead, sit up, John. So John Moore, I was telling somebody he's 50% of the normal requirements of the club. He's an Aggie, not a lawyer. But John, he lives over on the L Streets. He's got two boys, and they've lived here about 4 or 5 years, something like that. And I actually went to school at A&M with his older brother. He was one of my fraternity brothers back in the day, so I'm trying to introduce him to a lot of people like Collins. He's been asking about the club, saw him at Oktoberfest, and here he is. So y'all welcome John.
Welcome, John. Thanks for coming out this morning. So Brett mentioned it. So the event we talked about for quite a while was last week in Oktoberfest, and I know our three-headed monster's not here this morning, but they did really a great job, not just them, the entire committee, to make that happen. There's a lot of people who spent lots of hours, Jason on sponsorships, and it was a phenomenal event. I know as we were all sitting around Friday afternoon in the pavilion watching it rain, there was a lot of uncertainty what Saturday was going to hold. But thankfully, it did hold off. We had no weather issues. The crowd was great. One of the first times I can remember that every food vendor ran out of food. So there's pluses and minuses to that, but they were all extremely happy from a food vendor standpoint and would like to come back. So that's always good. It's a great event there. Last Wednesday night, we had a appreciation event. I failed to thank Michael and John at the event for the work of putting it on. So thank you to those two for making that happen. Had a great turnout, and something we've talked about from a member involvement, new member standpoint, was also trying to get wives and significant others involved. So more than just the Christmas party and board induction dinner. So continue to look for those. I don't know what the budget looked like. I'm not here all in one. But it's a good turnout, and I think everybody enjoyed it. Let's see here. I know you all read the newsletter, so you probably have bike raffle tickets, but for those that didn't, we had 2 TVs in the kids zone, if those that walked over there for Oktoberfest, that we are going to raffle off. So if you would like to buy a raffle ticket, be entered to win one of the 2 65-inch TVs, go talk to Rick. It's $20 for a ticket or $5 for 100. Cash, Venmo, PayPal, you name it. So that will, once again, a little something we can do there. So go see Rick, buy your raffle ticket. Encourage those that aren't here to also buy the raffle ticket. So that is that. We have a slight change in the schedules we talked about. We've got our third Thursday happening the second Thursday, which is next week. So Mr. Boyd's going to come up and talk about next Thursday.
Thank you. Yes, so the second Thursday is self-identified as the third Thursday. I would suggest for anyone who's the programs guy in the future to not do a vertical calendar because you miss things like there's actually 3 or 5 meetings this month and do stuff like shift that stuff around. But anyway, it's going to be a great time. So OHB Thursday night, 7 o'clock, we're having a barbecue roundtable panel. And this is a panel that honestly we could probably charge $100 a head for and advertise it and fill the place out. So the panel's going to be moderated by Kelly Yandell. She used to be the chair of Food Waste Texas, which puts on Camp Brisket and Camp Barbecue. She by herself as a trip would be an amazing program. But the panel that she's put together is Jill Burgess of Lockhart Smokehouse. And her story, she grew up in Lockhart, was not going to do barbecue, went to Harvard, got a generic white person job doing that stuff, and is now back selling barbecue. Chris Manning, who took over Smoky Joe's from his dad. Smoky Joe's is down in Oak Cliff, right off the 35. It was a standard lunchtime barbecue place, and now he's leading Texas Monthly Top 50 Quality Brisket. And then Alice Lasad, I think that's how you say her last name, who is the founder of Meat Fight. So this is an amazing panel. We are going to have food. Would love, I'm going to put out a thing soon. Just a couple people help me set up and stuff. It's going to be a really good time, a good thing to bring guests too. We want to keep Mr. Bailey busy. So come out next Thursday.
Yes,
Where
should be a
is
great
it?
event.
OHB.
OHB. 7 o'clock, OHB. Yes, please spread the word to friends, neighbors, other members. That'll be a great event. Let's see. Mark Gray would like to say something for PAX for LH.
Morning, gentlemen. I, Mark Gray, along with Brian Till and Amy Till, are the co-chairs for PAX for Lake Highlands this year. I'm the Exchange Club rep. Brian's the KC Nice rep, and Amy Till is the 100 Women's representative for that. So, unfortunately, last year we had to cancel it because of COVID. So this year it is back on. If you're not familiar with PAX, it's a great program that we've been doing for several years now, where we help bridge the food gap between the Thanksgiving break for an elementary school. We've had several schools in the past. Last year was Thurgood Marshall, and Stoltz was our overflow school. This year, Stoltz is our main school. And so the way it works is we have a pack of food that costs $45. And the good thing is that Brian and Amy have really kind of done a lot of shopping around. Our typical supplier was Tom Thumb, and we found someone that's a little bit better that can give us more food. So that's going to be fantastic this year. So a big shout out to those guys. So we decided to keep the pack the same cost, but just to give them more food. So the way it works is we will set up here in the KC. There'll be an assembly line. It's a super fun event. That's before a few days before Thanksgiving. So I'll go ahead and reach out when it's time for that. But what we're looking for now is donations. So there on everybody's table we have a QR code, so you can take your phone out if you wanted to, and just go ahead and click that little link, and it'll take you to, you can buy one pack for $45, or you can buy as many packs as you want. Tonight we're having a kickoff party at OHB, like everything else. Exchange Club North or Lake Highlands North. But we'll have food for purchase. If you show up, you'll get a couple tokens for beer if you want. We have a beer sponsor. We have Steel City Pops will be there. We'll have free stuff for the kids. So it is kid friendly. So if you want to bring your families up, that's a great way to have fun, let the kids run around, and then hopefully donate packs. So if you do make a donation there, or just prove that you made a donation somewhere, it could be this morning or wherever, we'll have a raffle. And so there's going to be a couple of things that they've been working to kind of raffle off. So it should be a fun event. So everybody's welcome to come up to OHB tonight, and then just spread the word. It can be, it doesn't have to be Lake Highlands community that donates this. This could be parents, in-laws, everybody, businesses, they can donate large amounts of packs as well. So we appreciate it.
And stuff.
So, thanks.
Thanks, Mark. And it is a great event. It's always fun. The assembly line, getting everything together. So keep your eyes out kind of mid-November for that. Any other announcements that I missed from the floor? All right, seeing none. Mr. Boyd's going to come back and introduce the program this morning. Bill.
One clap only.
Thank you very much. So, all right, this morning's speaker is Brett Johnson. So Brett is a buddy of mine, and one of his claims to fame is he hates to have a lot of prep time for our speech. So when the high school moved their program this week, it's like, crap, what are we gonna do? So I'm gonna call Brett. So, but in addition to being a friend of mine, Brett is the senior environmental coordinator, urban biologist for the city of Dallas. So Brett comes by way of A&M, got his master's degree at Tech. Work experiences include Philmont Scout Ranch, Texas Parks and Wildlife. Pretty sure that there's some vet stuff in there at some point too. But he came over to the city of Dallas in 2015. Within environmental and park circles, Brett is very well known. He's flown all over the country to come and speak on a huge variety of topics, including coyotes in Chicago, rats in New Orleans. Do not talk to him before you go to the French Quarter. Mountain lions everywhere, and today's topic. Brett's list of awards is super. I mean, every time he's on Facebook, he's posting another award that he's gotten. Dallas Parks Directors Cup, DFW Directors Association Environmental Stewardship, a two-time winner of the Southwest Parks and Recreation Training Institute, numerous awards with Boy Scouts on all the works that he does there. Areas of focus. Basically, if you have an environmental question about anything, call Brett. He's an expert on the blackland prairies, which we have here in Lake Highlands, feral hogs, which he talked about here a few years ago, wild dogs in South Dallas. He is the city's resident expert on locating and relocating homeless camps. Also an expert on bringing down dangerous trees at White Rock Lake without injuring cyclists or environmentalists. Bioblast education, educating, one of my personal favorites, educating lifelong outdoorsmen on the difference between yellow labs and mountain lions, and the finest dining establishments in Pleasant Grove. His favorite subject, so after the meeting, if you have a question about either of these two, so his favorite passion items that he loves to talk about are the black bears at Philmont Scout Ranch and the nesting and mating habits of white cattle egrets. But today, he's going to talk to us about a really great threat to Dallas's urban forests, which I hadn't really known until I saw him talking about this, the emerald ash beetle. So, Brett Johnson.
All right, if possible, I'm going to stay away from the microphone. I get fairly loud as it is. Can everybody hear me? All right, good. As he said, within the Parks Department, I do dabble in a lot of issues. Like I said, we do feral hog stuff. Just an FYI, since I did that last update, we've trapped about 2,400 pigs inside the city limits of Dallas. Okay. When I get done here, I'm heading to South Dallas to look at an encroachment, which is where somebody's taking over park property for their own private use. Look at where somebody has cut open one of our gates into the Comus Preserve. And yeah, going to look for a homeless encampment down there. So oh, it's got the pigs, all in one. Happy Friday, yeah. But today we're going to talk about the emerald ash borer. I say future challenge to the Dallas urban forest. Most likely, it's already here and we just don't know it yet. I'm going to talk about why here in just a second. All right. So, when we talk about the emerald ash borer, it's an invasive boring insect originally from Asia, specifically north central China. It was first identified in Michigan in 2002, and since 2002, there's a little bit of a misnomer on that. 2002, back it up about 6 years. It's also spread in 35 states, including Texas, in 2018. It only attacks Fraxinus, aka ash trees. We do have 3 species of ash trees that are found in Dallas, and it will attack all 3 of those species. But the main thing I need everybody to understand is once emerald ash borer gets established in an area, it has a 99.7% mortality for all ash trees in the area. Okay, now, just to give you all a little bit of perspective on numbers. If I say something and I flat out say I don't know, it's not trying to hide something, we flat out don't know. Okay? So if I have to go by the numbers, looking at the Texas Trees Foundation's numbers they came out a couple of years ago with, there's some data stuff we have to figure out. There's either 6.5 million trees or 15 million trees in Dallas. Okay? That's one of our big challenges going into this. Dallas, because it is so large, it has one of the largest urban canopies in the entire country. We do not have a comprehensive inventory. Okay, when this first popped up, and we started talking about it in 2017 at the Texas Trees Conference, Plano, their forester, was like, oh man, this is a big issue. Played on their phone for a second, got in their database. Oh my, we've got 12,000 ash trees in Plano. We don't have the ability to do that. But think about magnitude and size of how much bigger we are than Plano. How much of a larger riparian zone along White Rock Creek we've got than Plano has. Y'all feeling good yet? All right. Oh well.
If Rick can't fix it,
So let's talk a little bit more specific to Texas. So in 2018, it was only known in 3 counties in East Texas, Cass, Marion, and Bowie, way out in East Texas. Tarrant County popped up in 2018, and it is the only known infestation. The reason I'm saying that, Tarrant County, we've got an area just north of the Fort Worth Nature Center, right off the old air base, that it's a straight up infestation. The 3 counties in East Texas, it pops up on monitoring traps, but you don't see the sheer volume of tree loss yet. In Tarrant County, we now know they do not believe it was transported from East Texas. We believe it was transported in by a family that moved in from the Midwest with wood products, most likely with firewood. Okay, and it actually works right. I'm just going to tell you right now, we now believe that the emerald ash borer showed up in Tarrant County specifically in 2012. A family moved in from Wisconsin. But the reason I keep coming back to this is usually there's about a 6-year delay from the time it's first detected, meaning the trees are dying, or it's picked up on an EAB monitoring trap, and when it was first introduced. That's why I keep saying there's a really good chance that EAB is already here and we just don't know it yet. Okay? Because last year, it also popped up in Denton County. And what's concerning to us about that is it's actually popped up at 2 locations in Denton County, one of which is on Lake Louisville. And if you just play out the map and the way things tend to follow, it's on the branch of the Trinity River. So if it just starts moving south, it's coming. The next key point here is from the time it's first detected until you're approaching over 80% mortality is 3 to 4 years. So this evolves very, very quickly once it gets into an area. So some potential impacts from the emerald ash borer. is you get permanent loss of a species in the urban forest. And remember, I said, across the broad spectrum, it makes up about 14% of our tree canopy. Reality is, it's very pocketed. We talk about the Great Trinity Forest. We have areas in the Great Trinity Forest where the percentage of ash in the canopy ranges anywhere between 20% and 80%. That's 6,500 acres we've got to figure out how to deal with. You look at some of the neighborhoods near Bachman Lake in the 1960s. Ash trees, because they're fairly fast growing, were fairly popular for planting. So we've got whole neighborhoods. That's over 50% of their tree canopy. So we lose those trees. It can take literally generations to redevelop those same size trees. Throughout the Midwest, we've seen areas whenever you go over about 25% tree canopy coverage with ash trees, they've seen an increase in stormwater runoff. We've got areas along White Rock Creek that between 2014 and 2021, when we just did the survey 2 weeks ago, where we went from having roughly 105 ash trees to 389, all along the White Rock Creek Trail. Think that might make for a fun management challenge? Yeah. So we can see increased stormwater runoff, increased water consumption, and the big one for us, like I said, think about Bachman, older neighborhood, large percentage. The area around Bachman Lake is like the center of the urban heat island effect for Dallas. It's also a chronically underserved portion of Dallas. And they're potentially getting ready to lose a bunch of their trees. We see a significant decrease in property value reduction, a loss of neighborhood character, more stress on the poorest neighborhoods, and increased cost of maintenance. But this is one I just added last night because I don't usually put it on there, but I want everybody to be aware because we can't dance around the issue. What do we do with areas where you do have more than 25% ash coverage that very quickly, literally in a process of 2 to 3 years, a large chunk of that canopy could die? That's a significant fire hazard. So the do-nothing route could be setting us up for some pretty dangerous situations. But it's not just the loss of the trees. Throughout North Texas, we have over 100 species of insects that at some point in time in their life cycle, they depend on ash trees. We're looking at losing those too. And you look at how many of those, over a third, are butterflies and moths. Those are pretty critical pollinators for us in this area. So when we're talking about this, EAB flat out, or Emerald Ash Borer, is coming to Dallas. It's going to take a multi-departmental approach to figure out how we're going to deal with it. And I'm going to briefly go over what we're kind of looking at and some different strategies. But I need everybody to understand, at this point, there is not a predetermined plan that's already been available. The reason I'm saying this, as I'm being very blunt, is before we ever even took this to council, we already had 2 opinion pieces that popped up in the Dallas Morning News talking about what was going to happen. That's real cute because there were no decisions made. We hope to have that done by December, but at the time of those articles, there were no decisions made. So things that have already happened. In 2019, the Parks Department, we hosted a training for all the city arborists with the Texas Forest Service and the Nature Conservancy to start knowing how to recognize emerald ash borer signs and damage. In the summer of 2019, the Groundworks Dallas, which is a youth civilian conservation corps, they started collecting ash tree data for us, mostly in the Oak Cliff parks at the time. And that's how we were starting to identify something like, okay, there's not necessarily a whole lot of ash trees like in Keast Park, but nearly the entire southwest corner of Keast Park in the mature canopy is ash trees. And their research, or their surveys, is one of our first realistic goals we can try to achieve and try to figure out is, okay, one of our standards is now, all right, if the ash trees disappear from this area, would you notice? And we've got a lot of places where if those ash trees disappeared tomorrow, yeah, you wouldn't notice. But in that area of Keast Park, where you've got a roughly 2 acres and virtually all of the mature trees are ash trees, if they were to disappear in a 2 to 3 year time period, would you notice? Yes, you would. If you went over here off Cyan Road to Longview Park, very historically underserved area, 80% of the trees in that park are ash trees. Yes, you would notice those that all disappeared. And that concept came from the work that the teenagers were doing for us. Then we had something called COVID hit. That created some interesting challenges for us. We went for a while where our forestry staff could not ride in the same truck together. Well, that meant for about 2 weeks we had to find something else for them to do. So we had our forestry crew out trying out the iNatural staff, collecting data for us on ash trees throughout the city. That's also when we started discovering even our own forestry crew really needed to work on tree identification. Because what happens if we, everybody's, well, let the volunteers help us. Great. Volunteers are great. Until me and the forester have to spend the next 6 hours sitting there going through relabeling all the bodark trees and cedar elms that were put in as ash trees. Okay, that's a big, significant limitation to us. Throughout 2019 and 2020, we started adding emerald ash borer information to all conservation-related presentations, i.e., mostly me. Well, guess what happened in February of 2020 to our outreach efforts? Tanked for a while. In December of 2020, it started getting into great. It got in the ear of one of our city council members, and they decided they wanted a briefing on it. And so in December of 2020, I had to do a briefing for the Dallas Park Board, so that in February of 2021, I could do the briefing for the Environmental and Sustainability Committee for City Council. So, all of this comes, so we are starting to work with the Texas Forest Service, or actually we've been working for about 2 years now, on creating what they call a SLAM program, or slow ash mortality. And it utilizes IPM principles, so we're looking at everything across the spectrum from preemptive tree removal, to the use of chemicals, to the use of fire. Is that going to be particularly useful in Dallas? But I need everybody to understand, it will not eradicate the emerald ash borer. It is coming, but we can slow it down and mitigate some of the damages. So things that we have to do, there's 5 main points six in a SLAM operation. The first one is delineating the emerald ash borer population and density. To date, emerald ash borer has not been found in Dallas County. The foresters and myself from Dallas, we were able to work with the Texas Forest Service, and we actually doubled the emerald ash borer monitoring effort within the city limits of Dallas. We went from 4 to 8 traps this year, spread out all over. To date, we have not found emerald ash borer at all in the entire county. Like I said, Tarrant County's got it, Denton County got it last year. We're really watching that northwest sector of Dallas very carefully. That's where we suspect we'll probably get it first. But in bold, right now we're trying to determine the ash density and distribution of the ash trees across the city of Dallas. Like I said, we currently do not have a comprehensive inventory, so we are pretty much having to start from scratch on that. By the way, do y'all think that's a very cheap or easy thing to do? So we're also developing and implementing suppression strategies. We're still working on that. Again, we have no hard defined way of doing that yet. We're looking at the regulatory efforts. One of the things that's already happened, Tarrant County, no firewood, there's a quarantine on hardwood trees, all of them. You are not supposed to take any hardwood species as firewood outside of Tarrant County. As soon as, and the reason this comes into play, as soon as it hits Dallas County, we will be under a similar quarantine. Now we have to start looking at things like for park operations. We got a big trammel last year that we can actually create our own mulch and break down a lot of the trees that we get from just our normal maintenance operations. Well, as soon as Emerald Ash Borer gets here, we may not be able to do that. We may have to go to, because technically under quarantine, especially the ash trees, they are, any ash tree, once the quarantine goes into effect, it's supposed to either go through a kiln or it's supposed to be, the down tree is supposed to be treated with chemicals. That's a big change for us. But the big one for us is public outreach and communication. We're getting it started, trying to get everybody up. We have been creating videos. By the way, I do actually have about a 2 to 3 minute version of this. I know it's hard to read right now. And we got an evaluation, but we're not quite to the evaluation aspect yet. We first started our inventory looking at what the Texas Forest Service provides, which is a very high-level view of the county. And according to them, we've got a bunch of green ash and white ash over here in the eastern side of the county, and we've got Texas ash over here on the west side of the county. One thing they tend to forget, and right off the bat we made us question this map, is you got a big thing called White Rock Creek Corridor. It comes right through here. They don't really show any density of ash trees in there. Our highest concentration of ash trees is right here just north of White Rock Lake. That's showing. So, things we've had to figure out, you know, we are currently inventorying parks and the street trees, but also still trying to figure out exactly how do we sample the Great Trinity Forest. That's 6,500 acres. Do we do it simply as a sampled inventory, or is it a complete inventory? A lot of money between the two. Then we got to figure out, okay, how do we survey private trees versus ones on city property? I can go to any city property and I can count the trees, I can measure the trees, I can determine their current condition. I can't do that on private property. But in the end, last point I want to make on this is ultimately, it's because of the financial aspect of this, we cannot make any final management decision until we have an inventory on these trees. Just general options, I'm going to speed this up just a hair. We can do nothing, but basically if we do nothing, it means we're pushing the cost off until later. And oh, by the way, do nothing, we potentially build up a fire concern and a safety concern. And by that I mean ash trees, when they die, within 2 years become extremely brittle. We can preemptively remove all ash trees over a 5-year time period. Some people seem to like that idea. Does that seem very cheap? And how do you think some of the environmental folks really like this idea of taking out thousands of trees? Preemptive removal of ash trees and replace with comparable non-ash trees. That's pretty compatible. That sounds good. That's $500 to $700 a tree. And then ultimately, the last one is tree treat all ash trees with insecticides or select individuals. That's one of the things the Parks Department is looking at right now, as we've been inventorying, is we've been eyeballing, okay, what are high value individual ash trees that we could treat? Because there is actually a chemical treatment you can do for the tree. You have to inject it into the roots, it takes it up in the system, and it is very effective at treating. For your private homeowners, that could very well be a very viable option. Almost any arborist can do it. That one is about $275 to $350 a tree, and you have to do it about every 2 years. So for a private homeowner, that may be a very viable option. Is that particularly a viable option for me with the city? Yeah, that's a big budget cost if you treat that. Just some perspectives on what it's costed in other cities, and I just want to look at Arlington Heights, Illinois, $846 per tree for removal and replace. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, $750 per tree, and they're actually one of the, they are considered one of the more successful cities at dealing with emerald ash borer. They treated 27,000 ash trees. By the way, we're a lot bigger than Milwaukee. Chicago. I'm leery on putting Chicago in there because Chicago is really good at figuring out ways to make things really expensive. But their cost, $1,173 per tree for removal, and they did 60,000 ash trees in the city. Oh, by the way, we beat them too. So what are our proposed and current actions? Currently, we're working with the department staffs on training and monitoring and planning for EAB. That's currently happening. We've got a task force across streets, parks, Dallas Water Utilities, and the Office of Environmental Quality. We meet weekly on everything from our outreach efforts to, like I said, getting this actual plan put in place. We have removed ash species from all planting plans on city property. The building folks have removed ash trees from any of their mitigation stuff. We're not, but that is one of those weird catches we're having to work on. Is it doesn't have to be in the mitigation plans for removal, but it's still a protected tree. That's actually one of the big things we're having to figure out how to deal with. If you were to legally, because of Article 10, right now, we cannot go in and preemptively remove trees. We have to work with the citywide task force in implementing and developing the SLAM strategy. Like I said, that's already happening. As far as our recommendations go from the staff, again, we were working on developing, and just so you know, this is the part that went through the Environmental Sustainability Committee. So, working on the creation of a multi-departmental task force. That's already done. In December, we're going to be bringing in outside agencies and volunteer groups, and also develop a management strategy for EAB and public outreach. That's already on track to be done. As far as our next steps go, task force is developed. We're working on the plan. We should have that out in the next 2 months. I say here, if not approved, well, it was approved. But I want everybody to understand what all has happened since February of 2021 when we actually presented this. They actually threw us a big curveball. Right at the exact same day we did the committee presentation, because they also did the briefing for the Urban Forest Master Plan and asked us to start reviewing the Urban Forest Master Plan, which did not get approved until August. Well, here's the logistical challenge of that. The exact same staff that would look at reviewing and implementing the Urban Forest Master Plan is also the exact same staff that had to develop the EAB plan. That presented us with an interesting challenge. We've got our internal committees developed in our functioning. We didn't think we had any real data to work with, but we found out in 2014, the parks forester at the time had done an inventory of 42 park properties and counted the ash trees at that time as part of a park inventory. And so since February, myself, our forester, and the forester for Dallas Water Utilities has gone back and re-inventoried those same 42 parks. And just very antecedentally, over to the west side of Dallas, between the freeze and other just general die-off of the trees, over in that area, we've had a general decline in the ash numbers, not too unexpected. But the Bachman Creek corridor and the White Rock Creek corridor, we've seen anywhere between a 25 and 40% increase in the numbers since 2014. Fair Oaks Park, if you're familiar with that, has gone from about 180 to like 343 ash trees. We've been working with the Texas Forest Service to increase the monitoring. We've been by the way, just so y'all know, this is what that EAB trap looks like. And so if you're out in the woods and you see kind of about a 3-foot long triangular cylinder, that's the EAB trap. And so I know there's actually there was one here at White Rock over in Norbuck. We've been evaluating LIDAR, which is kind of a spectral analysis of going through to see if that would be good for a large-scale inventory. Some places have used it. Unfortunately, Dallas has a very highly diverse tree species composition. Unfortunately, the LIDAR just isn't there quite yet for us to do that. We've been doing multiple interagency trainings with our arborist. We've launched the city forestry website that goes into the Emerald Ash Borer issue, and also our branching out and branch out programs within Dallas Water Utilities and the Dallas Parks Department, where it lists all of our things like our tree planting projects. Just an FYI, starting this weekend, we have tree planting projects pretty much about every other weekend from now until about March. Tomorrow morning, they will be planting 50 trees at Garrett Park. So if you don't have anything going on, we'd love to have you at Garrett Park. I know we've got one coming to White Rock over at Stone Tables here in about another month or two. We can get that information to you. And we acquired and started training on Tree Keeper software. This is a software developed by Davey Forestry that allows us to inventory the trees. We can use our phones, or we've actually got in the last month we've gotten GPS capable tablets, so that now we can go up and actually start cranking out the tree survey. But from a time standpoint, I need everybody to understand, when we look at that, we've got it down. It takes 2 minutes, this is how much we've looked at it. It takes 2 minutes and 15 seconds to 2 minutes and 30 seconds per tree to collect the data on it. So we can do it quick, but there's still a lot of information out there. We've created, like I said, a number of videos related to Emerald Ash Borer, and we will have the recommendations completed within the next 2 months. But just so y'all have an idea of what that, what we can crank out with the Tree Keeper. So far, we've put almost 1,400 trees into there. Hopefully, in the next couple of months, I'll be getting an intern, and my forester will be getting an intern that will also be helping collect the data. Because, like I said, the reason I tell you all the other duties that I've got is our forester and the forester for DWU has just as many other duties that they have to do. So trying to pick up this inventory on the side is an interesting challenge. And with that, I'll take any questions. I know this is not necessarily the most feel-good topic in the world. A lot of times I don't have a lot of great answers, but I'll tell you if I don't.
So, I like numbers. If we conservative number from the Texas tree folks of 6 million trees.
Yeah.
And 14% of the canopy is ash.
Uh-huh.
That's 840,000 ash trees within the city of Dallas. That's with the low end numbers. So when we saw Chicago 60,000, Milwaukee 27,000, we have over 800,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Again, that's why we are having to work on how do we prioritize this. You know, that's why we also can't just jump in and just some people like, well, if we preemptively remove them, you know, people make baseball bats out of them. There ain't enough baseball bats out there for 800,000 trees. The other challenge we have on actively logging it, people will get really upset about that, rightfully so, but there's just not a market. And we've talked to a number of loggers, and big challenge is there's not a lumber mill basically within 100 miles of Dallas. So for us to do any kind of logging operation, we're not going to have somebody pay to, you know, because that was one of the notions was, oh, well, some people will come in and pay to log it. If there's any logging operation that would happen, we're paying for it. So that's, yes, sir.
So you talked a lot, obviously, about the tree side of it.
Yep.
We have a lot of squirrel hunters in this club. What's being done to eliminate the insect, or whatever you call the board?
Right now, the Texas Forest Service is working with the USDA APHIS, and they are looking at different options. There is a wasp that will attack them. That's native to China. And so that's one of the big challenges is, you know, how can I put it, you know, if you get into, and again, that's when we're looking at those IPM principles, biological control is one of those things you kind of look at, but at the same time you're sitting there going, yeah, what do we know about this wasp in Texas? Because one of the big challenges is, you know, when they do it up in the Midwest, it's one of those things, you get one study that looks like it works really well, and the next study says it barely works at all. But the nice thing about the Midwest is the wasp is fairly sensitive to cold temperatures. So if it doesn't work, great, they're gone. Our winters aren't that cold. And so that's one of the things that's concerning is they let them go, and we get a mild winter. We're not sure exactly what would happen with those wasps. So yeah, again, that's one of those. Like I said, we do know. Like I said, there's literally a chemical called triage. Boy, I know that they worked hard on that one. But you inject it, and it has to be injected about every other year. And the good thing, if you go back and you remember that big spike where it goes up like about year 9 and 10, you get the big spike and it starts coming down. Well, really, and that's what Milwaukee was banking on, is if you can get past year 10 and 12, so really basically 2, maybe 3 treatment cycles, if you can get over the hump, you're good.
Flatten the curve.
Yeah. Hey, these trees don't move, so that's a little bit better.
See you in 2 years.
Yeah. But that, like I said, for homeowners, that may be a very viable option. You get with your tree service, get in one of the tree. The main one that does is like ArborJet. I can't really promote anybody, but I can just tell you right now, they're the main ones that can do the treatments. That may be a very viable option for your homeowners, especially kind of up here along the White Rock Creek corridor. And I would start looking at it and seriously consider treating your trees if you have ash trees in your yard. If they are, I will say, if a ash tree is in particularly poor condition, I would go ahead and consider removing it. And just so y'all know, that is in our, we are looking at it in our plans with the Parks Department, is while we're doing our surveys, we are marking the ash trees that are already in relatively poor condition, and we are looking at going ahead and removing those. Reason being, those trees that are already in poor condition pretty much act as magnets for the emerald ash borer. Yeah.
What does it look like? What does it look like on the tree?
What's it look like on the tree? You won't see it. All right, so things you're gonna look for is, you see how like these leaves have been nibbled off? That's usually one of the first things that people see. Unfortunately, most of the time when people first start noticing them, we're already to this stage. Okay, so the way the emerald ash borer kills the tree is, when you say what does it look like, so the very next slide is a little bit this, they put it on that penny there. It's fairly small, and when it lays its larva, it comes up here to the bark, and it'll bore. One of the common signs for emerald ash borer is it's got a very distinct D-shaped hole that it's a borer, but it looks like a D on its side. And the larva will get in here. Everybody see these kind of squiggly lines in here? So the larva gets in here and basically eats the cambium layer of the tree, which is actually where most of your growth tissue and your live tissue in the tree is. So it effectively girdles the entire inside of the tree. So between taking out the cambium layer and then eating the growth tissue up in the leaves, that's how they take them out. But yeah, when we're looking for them, we get them on that. That's one of the reasons they make the track purple, is so they kind of stand. They're very iridescent and green. But when we went over to Fort Worth to look at them, I mean, I think they're being generous with that one that they put on the penny, because I mean they are literally about this big. And the significance over there in Fort Worth, and one of the reasons we do our BioBlitz events, which is where we get volunteers to come out, play with iNaturalists, take pictures, and you know, a lot of times I'm looking for my pollinators. The reality is, when I'm doing a BioBlitz, I mean, especially with kids, because honestly, adults will just write off insects in particular as just kind of, not very interesting, or they'll get focused on just monarchs. Kids in particular will take pictures of the most mundane items out there and stick it in iNaturalist. That's how I find invasive species. That, when they found that emerald ash borer in Fort Worth, that was a 12-year-old boy playing in a BioBlitz. Took a picture of what he thought was a pretty green insect in his backyard and put it on iNaturalist. And actually, my replacement with Texas Parks and Wildlife, a guy named Sam Kitchener, he was sitting there. If you haven't ever played with iNaturalist, it's basically Facebook for nature nerds. And so if you go in there and you label box elder as poison ivy, which by the way looks really close, you'll have 10 people probably within 10 or 15 minutes. Nope, you're an idiot. That's box elder.
Just like that.
But Sam was reviewing the photos that were in there, and he was going through, and he's an entomologist junkie. And he was flipping through the pictures, and suddenly he hits on this little green iridescent bug, and it sent up a red flag. He set up a meeting with the Texas Forest Service entomologist the next day, and they went out there, and sure enough, there's an ash tree in the kid's backyard. And they looked over the fence into the neighboring pasture, and every ash tree in the pasture was dead. But that's how it was discovered. We're going to monitor, but in all likelihood, the discovery of emerald ash borer in Dallas will probably be some 10 or 12-year-old kid making his random insect discovery. So that's the importance of our community or citizen scientists for us. All right. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good for you there. Appreciate you coming out today.
All right. Hope y'all feel good now.
So yeah, maybe we can discover that. It's our new job, just go find the beetle. All right, appreciate that, Bill. Thank you very much. John, welcome. You're welcome anytime as well. Good, Michael introduced to you as well. Packs for LH. Remember
Kick off
tonight. The flyers on your table. If you cannot make it, off review. If you cannot make it tonight, please consider donating. Also look for the upcoming schedule as far as November is concerned with that. We will not be here next Friday. We will be here. We will be at OHB on Thursday for barbecue roundtable at 7, and buy your raffle tickets from Rick. Anything else this week? Great to see y'all. Have a great Friday.